Hi everybody, it's Firefly with Girl Scouts of Alaska again. I have been wanting to have some s'mores. It's getting to be summertime. I thought that sounded like a good treat. And I know that now is not necessarily a great time to have a campfire in order to cook some s'mores. So today we are going to make some s'mores cups, which you can make in the oven, so we don't even need a campfire outside. So I've already wiped down and disinfected my work surface, and I brought out all of my ingredients. So the next thing I'm going to do is pull my hair back, because if I were making s'mores over a campfire, I would definitely want to make sure my hair is pulled back so that it doesn't, it's not down while I'm near a fire. It's also good to have it out of your face when you're cooking. So next I'm going to wash my hands, and then I think we'll be ready to get started. Okay, so for these s'mores cups, we are going to be using the oven, like I mentioned, and we need to preheat it to 350 degrees. We want to make sure to do it before we get started so that the oven has plenty of time to actually heat up to temperature by the time we actually want to put our s'mores cups in there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to set it to 350 degrees, and then we can actually start mixing our ingredients. Okay, so the ingredients that we need to make our s'mores cups are very similar to what we actually use when we're making s'mores over a campfire. We need some graham crackers, some powdered sugar, which is actually different than the way we make it, but that'll help us with our graham cracker crust for our s'mores cups. Marshmallows, of course. I am gonna actually use Hershey's Kisses. This recipe technically calls for the chocolate bars like you would use in a regular s'mores, but I have these left over from some cookies that I made, so I'm going to use these up because I think they'll work just as well, and it's the same chocolate anyway. And then our last ingredient is butter. So the first thing we need is the graham cracker crust. That'll kind of go at the bottom of our s'mores cup. And what we need to do is get it really crunched up. So we don't want just whole graham crackers. We actually need them to be really crushed up. So if your parents have some sort of, maybe a blender would work, or like a food processor to kind of chop it up, you could do that if they're comfortable letting you do that. I'm just gonna put some graham crackers in a Ziploc bag and crunch them up really good. Might be fun to play catch with your sibling if you wanna work together to get them all crunched up. So the recipe says that we need 1 cup of finely crushed graham cracker crumbs, and it says that's about 7 whole graham crackers. So I'm going to just put 7 graham crackers into this bag and crush them up, and then I'll pour it out to make sure that it does actually equal a cup. Okay, so I have my 7 graham crackers in here. I'm going to seal it up really good because I don't want to fling crumbs all over my kitchen, although it wouldn't be the end of the world. I could just sweep them up. But I want to try to keep as much as I can inside the bag. And I'm going to get some of the air out, but not all of it, because it actually kind of makes it a little bit easier to crunch up if there's a little bit of air in there. So crunch away, toss away with your sibling, however it takes to get them all crunched up. So this is what it's looking like so far. You can see it's really fine at the bottom. That's what I want it to look like. I've still got quite a few bigger chunks in here that I'm going to try to get out. So I've been squishing with my hands. I've been setting it on the table. I'm kind of using my palm to squish it out. Figure out what works best for you to get those little tiny pieces that we want. You could also use a rolling pin if you have one, or if you have a heavy bowl like I do, you might be able to try that and see if it helps squish them out. All right, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. There's still some slightly bigger chunks, but overall they're all pretty small. And I think I'll be able to squish them into the little muffin cups that we're gonna use. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with this size. All right, so the next direction that this recipe gives is to combine the graham cracker crumbs, powdered sugar, and melted butter into a small mixing bowl. So I already have my bowl out. I've already actually made use of it in a way that I didn't think I would. So I'm gonna have this in front of me. I'm gonna measure out my graham cracker crumbs just to make sure that it does equal a cup, because that's all I need is a cup. And this might be easier if you have a parent or a sibling or somebody that can help you out. I might end up making a big mess as I try to pour this out. We'll see. That went better than I expected. Woo! Spoke too soon. All right, so that's about a cup. There's a little bit of extra, that's okay. I'm sure I can find a use for it later. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my cup of graham cracker crumbs in my bowl. Let's see, how much powdered sugar do I need? I need a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. All right, there's my 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. That doesn't fall over and make a big mess. And I need 6 tablespoons of melted butter. I have a whole stick here. And if you look at your butter stick, it actually has measurements on it, so you don't have to, get it melted and then actually use a measuring spoon to make sure you have enough. A whole stick of butter is a 1/2 cup, so half of a stick would be a 1/4 cup. There's some math involved in cooking here. It also has little marks for each tablespoon. So 6 tablespoons is almost the whole stick of butter minus about 2 tablespoons. So this is, oh, my oven is up to temperature. That's exciting. So because I just pulled this out of the fridge a few minutes ago, it's definitely nowhere near melted. So it actually makes it easier for cutting. I'm gonna cut down the 6 tablespoon line. Okay, so here's my 6 tablespoons. I am gonna put it in a bowl just because I don't want it to spill over on my plate. And butter can melt surprisingly quickly sometimes, so you wanna make sure that you're keeping an eye on it as it's in the microwave. I'm gonna start with 15 seconds and kind of watch and make sure it's still doing okay. I may put it in a little bit longer once I check on it after 15 seconds. Every microwave is different, so you're gonna have to just watch and see as you get yours melted. Okay, so I ended up putting it in for 15 seconds, but I checked on it every few seconds because I could hear it kind of popping in the microwave. So I'll try to show it to you. It's mostly liquid, but there's still a chunk of butter in there, but that's okay because I know it's soft. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour it into my bowl with my powdered sugar and my graham crackers. That off to the side. So now I'm going to stir it together really good. And I like using wooden spoons for this kind of thing. If you don't have one, or if you prefer some other kind of spoon, that's fine. It's not crucial that you use a wooden spoon. Just what my dad taught me to use. This is starting to look really good already. And if you see some really big pieces of graham cracker, you can use your spoon to kind of crunch it up some more. It's a good time to do that. All right, I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? Does yours look kind of like that? All right. So this is going to be what goes in the bottom of our muffin tin, the individual cups. This recipe says to use mini muffin size because there's the regular muffin size, which are a little bit bigger, and then the mini muffin tins, which have usually 24. That's what mine has. And the bigger muffin tins might have a lot less, 12 or 6 even. So before I actually put this into the holes of my muffin tin, I need to spray it with some cooking spray. Any kind that you have. It might be canola oil, might even be coconut oil, sometimes make those. Just some sort of cooking spray that we're going to spray the bottom of the muffin tin so that we don't get this really stuck in there, because we are going to be putting marshmallows in there, and those get really sticky when they get warm, as you know. So I'm going to spray my muffin tin. And I like to spray mine over the sink just in case I miss the pan and end up spraying somewhere else. It goes in the sink where I can easily clean it up and it doesn't go on any of my appliances or anything else I don't want it on. And all I'm going to do is I'll show you the first couple just so you can see. I'm just going to do a little spray that kind of covers most of the hole. So that's even maybe too much because I ended up going off it, but it's kind of hard to aim it super well sometimes. So something like that covers all of the bottom. You don't need a whole lot, and I'm going to do the rest over the sink. All right, so I've got a little bit of cooking spray in the bottom of all of these. So what we're going to do is spoon a little bit of this graham cracker and powdered sugar and butter mixture into each of these little muffin tin holes. And all I'm going to do is just put it in the bottom of them for now. I want to kind of get it a roughly even amount in all of them. And then once I have some in all of them, I'm going to use my fingers to kind of press it into like a little crust. Okay, so I've used up the stuff that's in the bowl. I have some in every hole on my pan, but I didn't exactly do a very good job doing an even amount in every one of them. So I'm going to use a smaller spoon and kind of even them out. So take some that has one of the holes that has a little bit more and put it into one that has a little bit less, just to kind of make them a little bit more even. I'm also going to use the spoon to kind of scoop where I spilled outside of the little holes so that it's all kind of together. This stuff might burn if it's just hanging out on the pan without actually being part of the crust. All right, so I have some in all of them, roughly even. So now I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to press them into the bottom of each of these divots to form kind of a little crust. And I do want it to kind of go up the sides a little bit. I don't want to just push it in the bottom. I want to make it kind of a crust that goes up the sides too. All right, so I did the top row. Hopefully you can kind of see how I tried to press them into the side, not just the bottom. This is where it's really helpful to have those super fine pieces of graham cracker. The bigger chunks don't necessarily want to press down very easily. So if you have some bigger chunks, just do the best you can or try to squish them with your fingers to make it easier. All right, so I've got them all pressed in. They're not perfect, but I think they're pretty good. So now I'm just gonna make sure that I have all the crumbs pushed back in because I knocked some of them out when I was pressing the crust around. Um, so this is what mine looks like. Okay. The next step is to bake these cups for 4 minutes in our oven, which is already preheated to 350 degrees. I think that my oven actually gets a little bit hotter than what I set it to, so I'm going to put it in for 3 minutes and take a look. I don't want to end up overdoing it, but basically you just want them to look like a nice golden brown, and we're going to end up putting them back in the oven for a little bit. So but we want them to be a little bit harder for when we actually eat them later so they won't completely fall apart. They'll be a little bit more together. So I'm going to put this in for 3 minutes. Now is also a really good time to wash your hands because if they're anything like mine, they're very buttery and crummy. So before we move on to our next step, I'm going to wash my hands. Okay, I also cleared some of the stuff off my table because it was feeling a bit cluttered. The next thing we're gonna do is prep our marshmallows to go in our little crusts. And what we're gonna do is actually cut each of these regular sized marshmallows in half. And we're gonna want 24 half marshmallows. So if you do the math there, it'll take 12 regular sized marshmallows cut in half to make 24 to go into our 24 cups that we are working on in the oven right now, which they're almost done, so I might not even finish prepping my marshmallows before they come out. So I have scissors that I specifically use in the kitchen, so that's what I'm going to use. You might wash some other pair of scissors if your parents are all right with that. You can also use a cutting board and a knife to carefully cut your marshmallows in half. I'm going to use scissors because that's what's convenient to me. And I'm going to be really careful not to cut my fingers. So I'm going to hold the ends of the marshmallow and I'm going to cut down the middle. So the blades are nowhere near my fingers. And I apologize for the background noise. My cat is playing with a toy mouse. So I'm just going to keep cutting until I have 24. If you don't cut all the way through, you can kind of move your fingers and cut from a different direction to finish it. All right, and that is my timer, so I need to check on my graham cracker cups. All right, it's looking pretty good in there. I went ahead and turned my tray 180 degrees and put them in for another minute, and I think then the crust will be about ready. They look like they were close, but not quite there. So I'm gonna keep cutting my marshmallows. All right, I've got 20 of these ready to go. That was my timer, so I'm gonna go check on the graham cracker cups again. Well, they look good as far as being done. They did kind of sink towards the bottom. I think maybe because of the butter and some of the pieces are still kind of big. But I think it'll be all right, even though the crust doesn't go all the way up the sides anymore. It'll be a little bit less of a cup is all. It'll be kind of like a crust on the bottom instead of all the way around. All right, so I had 20. I just need to cut 2 more in half to get 24. And then the next step is to place 1 marshmallow in each graham cracker cup, cut side of the marshmallow facing down. And if you just made a pile like I did, it's still pretty easy to see which is the cut side, because this is the not cut side. This is the outside of the marshmallow. This is the cut side. It's super sticky, so you can still tell. Move some of my stuff out of the way. I'm gonna set some hot pads down on my table and bring the tray over so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so we're gonna put one marshmallow in each of the cups, sticky side down or cut side down. This pan is still very hot, so be careful not to touch the pan itself. If you want to wait a few minutes until the pan cools down a little bit, you can certainly do so. Or maybe you could use a pair of tongs to hold your marshmallow and set it in there. I'm just going to be really careful and kind of hold it like this so that my fingers don't touch the pan. All right, so I have half of a marshmallow in each of the little cups now. They're all cut side down. And so the next step is to set the oven to broil. Place the pan of s'mores in the oven under the broiler and broil for 1 to 2 minutes, just until the marshmallows are soft and beginning to look toasted. And marshmallows can burn really fast, which I know a lot of you know that from cooking them over a campfire. It's the same when you're putting them in the oven. You got to make sure that they don't get too done too fast. So if you've never used the broil function of an oven, it basically means the heat is only coming from the top. When you're baking, it's normally the heat is coming from the top and the bottom, and the hot air kind of swirls around and makes the whole oven hot. When we're broiling, the heat is just coming from the top, so it's really only going to toast our marshmallows. It shouldn't cook the graham crackers underneath a whole lot more than they already are. So set your oven to broil. I'm gonna put them in for a minute and then check on them. You can kind of see how golden and toasty the marshmallows look and either pull them out or add some more time. So I'm gonna change my oven over to broil and put the pan in. You might need to ask your parents how long it takes for the broil setting to kind of kick in on your oven. So you might need to wait a couple minutes before you actually put your tray in there to make sure that it's not kind of in the bake mode, that it's actually set to broil. But other than that, just put it in for about a minute, check on it, maybe some more time, but we'll wait and see what mine looks like. Hopefully it'll look something like yours. My goodness, look at how golden and perfect these are. Yes, okay, set these down. So this would be when you would put that one piece from the Hershey's chocolate bar on them. Like I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, I don't have a chocolate bar, but I do have Kisses left over. So I'm gonna try those out. And all you're gonna do is set them on top of the marshmallow. I think I might try putting some facing down too, just to see. And this could be something, the unwrapping part could be something that you do while you're waiting for your cups to cook or your marshmallows to toast. Save a little bit of time. I want to get them all in before the marshmallows harden too much. I think I'm gonna like these facing down a little bit more, because then some of the chocolate kind of goes down into the marshmallow, which I like. But I'll do a few with them facing up just to see. All right, my s'mores cups are complete. That's kind of what they look like. Yours might look a little bit different, especially if you used actual pieces from the chocolate bar instead of the Hershey's Kisses. You could use Rolos, you could try Reese's, the mini ones, you could try really all sorts of different things. I guess just see what kind of different candies you have in your house and try them out and see how they work. You're welcome to post on our Girl Scouts of Alaska Facebook page if you tried something out that turned out pretty tasty. So these are completely assembled. They're still very hot, and the recipe suggests that you leave them cool for 15 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave them here and come back and check on them in 15 minutes. And then I'll kind of take them all out of the pan, and I'll, of course, have to try one. All right, these s'mores cups have been cooling in the pan for at least 15 minutes. So I'm going to use a butter knife to kind of work around the edges and pull each of them out of the cup. And I'm going to set them on this tray so that they can kind of cool all the way around before I put them in some sort of storage container for later. Ooh, that came out really nicely. All right, I got them all on my pan here. And of course I have to try one, right? Just take the one closest to me. This crust really held together a lot better than I was worried it might with some of the bigger chunks of graham crackers I had. So let's give it a go. Yeah. My kiss kind of melted into the marshmallow. That's really good. I would say that's a great alternative to being able to make a real s'more over a campfire. So I hope yours turn out as good as mine did. I'm going to end up putting them in some sort of storage container, probably share them with my family. They'll probably last quite a bit, just at room temperature. I wouldn't put them in the fridge, so I wouldn't want the chocolate to get too cold. But you could, I suppose, and you could always reheat them for a few seconds in the microwave to make them all nice and melty again. Just, again, be really careful because there are marshmallows and we don't want them to burn. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed making s'mores cups with me. Feel free to share pictures and tips that you learned on our Girl Scouts of Alaska Facebook page, and we'll see you next time.